and career. I'm Catherine. I'm one of UQ's Young Alumni Advisory Board members who are behind this webinar and a lot of the other events that are available to UQ's Young Alumni. As a board, our goal really is to engage with the young alumni community and basically allow all of you board members, all of you members to tap into the resources and connections that you have available to you as alumni of UQ. This is the first in our new employability series that as a board we're rolling out this year. So I hope you find this webinar helpful, and there will be a survey popping up at the end that we would love to hear from you and what kind of content you'd like to see for our later employability events this year. So please stick around and make sure you fill that one out for us. Just to make sure the webinar runs smoothly tonight, I will run through some housekeeping. As attendees, you're all muted and unable to share your video, so don't worry about any of your settings or messing around with them. If you do experience any technical difficulties, please just pop a question in the chat icon that you'll find in your bar at the bottom. We'll do our best to sort out any issues and give you a hand if we can. Tonight's webinar is Q&A based, so please, if you have any questions for our panelists, just pop them into the Q&A icon. We'll go through those a bit later and answer your questions live. If you do miss anything, don't worry, the recording will be available after the webinar, so look out for the email from the UQ alumni, so don't miss out on that one. We might just give a couple more minutes for any stragglers to log on, but in the meantime, please just sit back, relax, and enjoy the music.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. My name is Chen, and I'll be your host for tonight's webinar. Before I go on, I just wanted to extend my sincere thanks to both the Young Alumni Advisory Board and Cole from UQ for organizing tonight's discussion. I'm sure that this is a hot topic of conversation for everyone during these unprecedented times. Back to a little bit about myself. I was an international student and a proud alumni of UQ, where I graduated back in 2012 with a Bachelor of Commerce. I currently work for Page Group, a UK-listed global recruitment agency, and lead our shared services finance division in Queensland. So when we sort of kick off right now, let's start with the first question that's come in. How do you define employability in this current climate? And I'll hand it on to the panel.
Hi, Paul. I'll take that one if that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, with I suppose redefining employability. Firstly, I'll introduce myself. Michael Berger. I run Talent Blueprint. We're a specialist in the engineering and construction sector. Before starting that in 2015, I've been in engineering recruitment for 20 years. So worked in the UK and also back in Australia in the mining industry. So redefining employability, I would say in my sector especially, traditionally, employers would look to engineers and construction people for problem solving, their use of data, their commercial skills. Since COVID has come on in since March, the focus is really turning towards, your ability, certainly now, is adaptability, adapting to the new norm, new technology that's being thrust, working remotely for long periods. Collaboration is a big one, working with teammates and communication are probably the big three. Working remotely, not face-to-face, and trying to get your head around working deadlines remotely would be how I'd redefine employability at the moment.
Hi.
Thanks, Michael.
Should I answer as well? So I'll introduce myself. My name's Sammy. I work at Six Pivot. We're a consultancy that help teams build great software. My background is I've worked in agency recruitment as well as internal recruitment and consulted with companies all over Australia on their hiring strategies and given recommendations on inclusive policies for marginalised groups of people. When it comes to redefining employability, firstly, I do want to acknowledge that it's a difficult time right now with employment and recognise that a lot of people have lost their jobs. So when it comes to redefining employability, I think with the current climate that we're in, that you need to be strategic with your approach. Specifically toward companies who are actively hiring. This could mean things like tapping into your network and learning how to translate your transferable skills into terms that an employer will appreciate. But we can dig more into that in the Q&A if you like, but that's me.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Sammy. There's been a few other questions that's come through as well. So I'm just going to read off one of which I think it's a very relevant question that's on top of everyone's mind. So someone actually asked the question on, based on your experience, have you noticed any differences in the numbers and types of employees that employers are looking for since this whole COVID situation happened? Should I hand that to Kieran, perhaps? Who might want to take this?
Oh, Kieran might be having technical difficulties.
Yeah, look, I'll answer that, Paul. Here he is. Here he is.
Sorry. Hello, guys. Sorry about that. For some reason, it wasn't joining. Hello, everybody. I actually missed that question. Apologies, Paul. Would you like to ask that again?
Sure. So the question, again, is based on your experience, what have you noticed, in terms of the differences in the numbers and types of employees that employers are looking for since COVID has happened?
I'll do a very quick introduction to everyone. Look, my name's Kieran O'Donnell. I own a digital recruitment company called Just Digital People. I started this in 2013, 7 years ago, initially in Brisbane. We're now in Brisbane, London, Melbourne, Sydney. I think that covers the four territories. It's a very, I suppose, we specifically work in digital technology, digital marketing, those sort of areas. So look, when COVID came along, it was pretty much like an overnight, within the space of the week, just job flow just completely stopped. So, it's probably only been in the past few weeks, and I think this week in particular, that we are seeing some really good returns. So, if I think of this week alone, we had about 3-4 placements being made, and we've probably had about 10 jobs, 15 live jobs that have just recently come through, which, considered where we were last week, it's shoulders above. So I think the confidence is slowly coming back. But look, I sort of think it doesn't change. I think if you're a good person and you've got good skills, I think you're going to be employable. And I think it is just that the volume has drastically decreased. I don't think there's no escaping that. And no matter what level you're at, whether you're a brand new person entering into a market or whether you've got 5 years experience, changing jobs, moving jobs is going to be hard. And I think, if you're out of work, this is probably the boys and girls that I feel most sorry for, because it's going to be exceptionally competitive right now. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
I think it does. And do you have anything to add, Michael, Sammy?
Sammy, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think, it mirrors pretty similar to what Kieran says. There was a drastic decline. And as the curve has flattened, we've seen job ads being posted, and there's a slight incline, but it's nowhere near at the normal level. So I think that means that we might be, while it is increasing, it is still really competitive and challenging. So I think, yes, there are less job openings at the moment. And it does seem to be a little bit more of an employer-driven market at the moment. But as time goes on, we're hoping that will change.
Yeah, look in construction and engineering, we've seen, I suppose we're in that chaos phase at the moment where clients are trying to deal with what's going on. It feels like we've been in it forever, but it's two months. So yeah, job recruitment is not on the agenda. They're just trying to deal with it. But when we move forward, it's going to be recession-like conditions. So it'll be super competitive in engineering and construction. It's been business as usual in a lot of cases, but it doesn't mean that the companies are going to add to their headcount or really. They're just trying to deal with what they got. And look, there are opportunities due to border closures that we've seen with mining and fly in, fly out. People have been restricted from accessing interstate jobs. So, we've worked on some roles in South Australia and Northern Territory that have just been for locals. So we've seen a couple of people, snare opportunities based on that. So a bit of a silver lining.
Yeah, that's great. Great to hear from everyone. And from our end at Page Group as well, in the finance and accounting space that I look after, we're seeing that it is picking up slowly, which is good. So I'm cautiously optimistic, because in the last week itself, our team has actually picked up probably about 8 jobs in the last week, and that's across a wide range of different sectors. So yes, we acknowledge that some sectors are probably going through a very difficult time, which I think it's fair to say. But there are other sectors, like Michael has mentioned, in mining services, logistics, transport, government, healthcare, that are still going. And for all the finance graduates out there, I think if you can sort of focus your mindset on looking for the opportunity out there instead of just being concerned, I think that would be the best way forward for you to find something for yourself. Yeah, so there's a lot of other questions that have just come in. I'll take one from Celestine Wong Lim. Celestine's asked, how do you view the employability of experienced international candidates with suitable skills who require visa sponsorship in this COVID-19 period? do you think it's becoming even more challenging because of the fewer job openings?
100%. The view that I'm having is companies probably are going to be less inclined to want to sponsor people. I think that's just from an ease. I mean, the companies are going through a lot of chaos now. They're going through things that they've never had to do before. So a lot of them are having to sort their back office out. I mean, anything that's technology driven, a lot of those organizations were already having the working from home options, but there's lots of companies that have been having to sort all of that out. HR now having to sort out new policies of returning to work. What's going to be a safe environment? How many boys and girls can you have within an organization? You've got buildings now with two people allowed into a lift. I think I heard a stat the other day that in order for Suncorp building to make themselves full, it would take them something like 7 hours to get everybody into the building alone. So obviously there's going to be things around that. So HR are looking through all these things and they're diverting their attention to that. And so when you're talking of bringing a new person into an organization, if there's sponsorship involved, I can imagine a lot of HR will put that, unfortunately, into the too hard basket, that they don't have time to do it. What they really want now is, a lot of companies have been practicing their onboarding. Can they onboard from without physically seeing someone? So again, doing Zoom meetings, whatever it is. So, even like the physical face-to-face onboarding has changed. So I think when you're adding another complexity into it, I just personally think clients will shy away from it. They'll just say, look, no, I'm not interested. It's just something else I don't have the time to deal with. And that's what everything's coming down to at the moment. It's clients' time and what they see to be easier for them.
Yeah, I agree and disagree. So it depends on who you're talking to as an employer. So if Celestine, sorry if that's your name, but if you're talking about yourself and you're an international student who has the skills required but requires sponsorship, yes, it is going to be difficult now. More so. It was already difficult generally, but what this means is strategically, we just need to think a little bit more about the companies that we're approaching and companies who are set up to sponsor. Granted, that might take out a good amount of small to medium businesses potentially, but that doesn't mean that, say, the Microsofts or the bigger companies, depending on what sector that you're in, aren't set up to do that. Because if you are a skilled person and you can do the job, and a company is set up to do it, you should have a fair chance at getting that job.
Yeah, I think that's well answered on both parts. Yeah, like you said, Sammy, there are some niche industries, and we've seen in engineering where, if you are an international person requiring sponsorship, we nearly went through a visa process for someone in the geotechnical space in a really niche area at the start of the year. So, look, it's going to be challenging, but there may be a firm out there that's open to it, and that firm may see it as a bit of a coup to get someone with a great amount of experience. And look, if you're negotiable on a starting package, it may be very attractive for someone to take you on. But look, yeah, it's certainly not on the agenda of major companies to start sponsoring people in this sort of climate. So.
Sure. I speak on behalf of finance. I've once worked with a candidate who actually required sponsorship. That was a couple of years ago, and it was actually with a small to medium-sized organization, about circa 150 mil, which is, they're not a Suncorp or an Origin, but the candidate had a really niche skill set. He was a mix of IT and finance, and he was really good. So the company actually went through the process of sponsoring him, going through the hassle of, going through that whole process. That took like 6 months or to get there, because they weren't really set up to do it. So I think it's a case-by-case situation, and I think it's about having an open mind. I don't think that anyone should, just give up hope. But to Sammy's point, I agree. Like, obviously, the bigger companies will probably be in a better situation to do that because they're well set up to sponsor people.
Yeah.
But if you do have a really good skill set, you're special, that no one else in Brisbane have your skill set, then why should you not continue applying for anything that might be of interest? Yeah. So that's that. And there's another question that's come through from Lukman Ahmed. So Lukman's a fresh graduate. His question or her question is how leaders and managers are managing their leadership and business during this critical crisis to hold their followers without losing hope.
Yeah, very good question. I'm happy to go first with that one if you guys want. Look, I think all of it comes down to probably depending on the business that you're working in. Again, look, if I look across some of JDP's clients, we've got some that haven't been affected at all, and for them it's business as normal. If anything, some of them are happier now because they get to work from home. They were probably having the conversations with their bosses before they wanted to work from home. They weren't allowed to. Maybe that's trust issues and things like that. So now certainly they've got that ability to work from home and prove to their boss that they're capable to have the same outputs and rewards. So those organisations probably it won't be applicable to. I mean, you've got leadership probably having to go through different changes now. You've got to lead a workforce that you don't physically sit in a room with day in, day out. But I think the leadership, it's become a lot more difficult for organisations where in the UK they've furloughed people, and obviously over here you've got people on JobKeeper, you've got people on reduced hours, and they're probably I see probably the more difficult parts. I mean, I can talk obviously from recruitment, and I presume it's going to be the same in every recruitment organisation across Australia right now, where people have had their hours reduced, they've had their salary reduced. And, you've got boys and girls, without a doubt, in probably every industry where your motivation is waning. So look, leaders' jobs are, I suppose, to try to pick people up in whatever way it's possible. And I suppose it does bring it back to in every industry trying to enjoy the time. I think I was listening to somebody the other week and they were talking about what's COVID going to be remembered for. I mean, everyone talks about the GFC now quite fondly, and obviously it wasn't that great when you were sitting in it. And any of us that are on this podcast or on this will know that it wasn't probably a good time to be a part of. And I think this will be a similar thing. It's not great when you're in it, but when you reflect back, it can be. And everyone will learn certain things from it. But I think every leader's job is to get the boys and girls, build that camaraderie. And I suppose strong people will always come out of it. And that doesn't have to be physically strong. That can be mentally strong. And I think a lot of us will be testing people's mental strength. And that's really the part that I'm looking forward to seeing as well, seeing what people do come out of it and what ideas spring from it as well. But again, internally, we've been playing games online, placement board games, things like that, just things that will motivate people to try and get them to go. Again, you've got to work out what people's motivators are. Generally in sales, it's financial. Again, if you're working for NFP, it's the giving back. So again, you've got to work out what motivates the boys and girls within your organisation. And I think good leaders will always know when someone's feeling good, when someone's feeling down. I mean, I've had people in my organisation that probably have become unmotivated, and I suppose my job as the business owner is to bring them back. It's sort of like the carrot and the stick, and you've got to sort of motivate them in certain different ways. Again, I don't know what, Michael, you're seeing across your group or what advice you give to that.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a good answer you gave, and there's no manual on it. No one had pre-COVID training on how to manage people. It came on pretty rapidly. So, look, in our sector, business has continued. So I think the managers are very fortunate and count themselves lucky in engineering and construction. So, that's the luck of the draw. So, the collaboration thing's been the real challenge for them, I think. And they've talked to us about, I mean, we've had people start jobs, like hand in their notice in February, where everything's, onto a new career move, start in late March in their bedroom at their home computer. They're about to start this new great job. And that's a real challenge for leaders to manage new starters into their business that aren't even there physically. So, that's been a challenge, and just collaborating from remotely with engineers and design milestones has been, it's been a challenge. But from what I've seen, I don't think your employees expect, I mean, like Kieran said, they expect some leadership and direction, but I suppose they're open to, we're thinking as we go in some respects. So, but look, that's all going to ease, isn't it? It's got to get better, and it's got to get back to some normality. What are you seeing, Sammy, at your desk?
Yeah, my answer's a little different. I think what this pandemic brought out in leadership was different leadership styles. And the question is, how do they hold? I think when Lukman is asking, how do they hold their followers? So I'm assuming that's employees. So how are leaders still inspiring their employees? Some of the strategies that I've seen across the market are generally around transparency and communication. So when the peak of that pandemic and a lot of people were being stood down, that was elicited a lot of stress. So we saw a lot of companies give out some radical transparency. This is our runway, and these are our levers that we're going to pull at 3 months, at 6 months, at 12 months. We're either going to start reducing hours at 6 months so that they can set expectations with their team. Their team didn't have so much uncertainty, so this allowed to alleviate stress and increase productivity. On the flip side of that, we saw companies who did have to stand down some of their teams, and major companies made headlines for things like that. Some of them handled them well, some of them didn't handle them very well. Not many people have had this experience. The ones who did it well stood down their team, I suppose, with their hearts. They were very honest about it. They wrote quite large blogs. They created this type of alumni Slack channel so that people could connect and help each other get jobs. So there are some, it's really brought out, say, some of that top tier leadership and maybe the leaders who are still learning. And that's kind of what we saw during this time.
Yeah, I would agree very much with what Sammy has said. In our business at Page, I think the key thing is that our CEO has been extremely transparent and honest with the entire company. He's addressed the entire business. I think we've been very forthcoming to announce in terms of what the business is doing, what steps and what measures we're trying to take to mitigate the situation. So it doesn't come as a shock, but you're kind of prepared. You know, this is stage 1. We're trying to reduce our costs. Let's work reduce hours. Stage 2, you know, there's all these other steps that we're taking. And I think it's important, like now more than ever, for leaders to, let's, you know, not sweep things under the carpet. Let's acknowledge that it is a difficult environment in a macro economy, but
Oh goodness. Did Paul just fix for you guys?
Paul's gone, yeah.
Okay, I was like, oh gosh, I dropped out.
All phrase.
That means the questions have gone. But yeah, look, I mean, I can sort of, in terms of what you said there, Sammy, look, totally agree. I mean,
somewhere else, but you know, you do it differently right now because we're all working virtually. So you might do like a trivia on Friday virtually on webinars like this or and stuff like that. And in our business as well, like yes, it's a difficult economy, but it's also the opportunity for us to really invest in ourselves. So as a business, Page has been, inviting all our employees and stuff to webinars like these, professional development, because you're not going to have this amount of time when you get back into the office. You're going to be, busy and whatnot. But, while you're working, if you are, this is the opportunity for you to sign up for webinars that could, develop yourself, whether it's something relating to your job or something that's out of, personal interest to you. And I think this is, good leaders will sort of communicate that to their teams and encourage people on their team to, keep their heads up, be positive. If you're struggling, I'm here. It's okay to struggle. It's normal. It's you're not alone. We're all in this together. I think, and that I think it's what good businesses are doing. And I think amidst this crisis, when we sort of emerge from it, however long it might take, 3, 6, 9 months, I don't know. But I think the good businesses will be, you would see that the good businesses will get a lot stronger. And unfortunately, for the ones who don't have good leaders and, they don't communicate well enough, you probably see that they might have a bit more staff turnover or et cetera, I suppose. Yeah, so great question, and thanks for all the insights from everyone. There's a lot more questions coming. Let me just
34 now. That's awesome.
Yeah,
we need to move faster.
Yeah, we might have to be a bit quicker.
I was thinking about answering them in the box.
I need to spot that now, actually.
Eva Morahan, she's got a question. Eva Morahan, do you have any advice for someone who's soon to be graduating, who may not be able to get the same hands-on skills before graduating, such as internships? Like how can she land internships?
Yeah, this is a toughie. It is quite specific to the industry that you're in, so it's a little bit hard to say. But yeah, I want to acknowledge that for graduates coming out in this period, it's going to be a touch longer than you expected for employability, I would say. What you can do in the interim, depending on what area that you work in, so I don't know either what you work in, but hypothetically, if you're in technology, you could do side projects and things like that, or engineering, and you could act as though you have a project. Let's say you're an engineer or something and you want to build something and you hypothetically build it. You're gaining this experience by trialing out some of those things. Admittedly, things like healthcare, or if you're kind of in the medical sector, that's going to be a harder thing to do. But I would say side projects that it's going to get you as close to experience. And this will really show motivation and that you're self-driven. Now, while I'm not saying go do all these side projects and drive yourself into the ground, be strategic about the side project that you choose and do it mindfully and make sure you look after your mental health.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I agree with everything Sammy said there. I think a lot of it, again, my brain always thinks, regardless of what era you're in, graduating and finding a job is always the hardest time in anyone's career. Like, I know it certainly was in mine, and I think I knocked on so many doors before I got my first job. I've probably done lots of roles that probably I didn't want to do, but, you know, again, it was a means to an end, and obviously people have to work to get money. But look, in relation to that, I mean, I think there's so much available now, so many opportunities that people can do. And I mean, Sammy says side projects, 100% agree. And look, I can talk of boys and girls when they first entered into JDP, and when we used to hire real juniors, you know, people with literally no experience. I recall one person, in order to get our attention, actually baked us a cake with the initials JDP on board, you know, and that certainly got our attention. You know, I'm not recommending people to go and start baking cakes and things like that, but look, it was certainly something that stood out, and it still stands out to this day to me. Look, I recall people doing building, like if they're developers working in technology. I recall people that have actually built websites that mirror image the company's website that they really wanted to work at. So if there was a company in particular they wanted to work at, they'd go and build their resume and have it identical. I think there's a famous story with Airbnb, and someone wanted to work at Airbnb, so they built their resume so it was an identical image to Airbnb. Sure enough, Airbnb seen the link on Twitter, they got an interview, they got a job. You know, so there are things that people can do to go above and beyond, and I think that's probably the thing that I'll be doing now. I mean, if your goal is to go and secure a job, then make yourself stand out. I mean, I remember the last advertisement I put on before COVID kicked in, and it was like for a social media marketing coordinator role, 50K or whatever it was. I had about 250 responses, and I'm not going to lie, there probably wasn't one person there that done anything different from anybody else. And from that, I might have received 5 phone calls, and everyone tells me their communication skills are great, but no one was demonstrating it. So I don't think that will change. And I think when you're probably a little bit younger, you sometimes don't realize, or you're inexperienced, you don't know what someone with experience is really, really looking for. So that's the part that I'd be saying. And look, 100%, you know, if you're in tech, you know, you can get your online portfolio looking good. You know, you can get GitHub, you can get your GitHub up to doing better. You know, if you work in marketing, you can start doing vlogs. You can start doing blogs. You know, you can start getting your name out there a little bit. You know, you can start doing some social stalking of somebody that you really like. I know people, they used to love Gary Vee, and then they used to base a lot of their stuff around that. So, you know, you find yourself your mentors as well. And the other part, I mean, I think right now people are more than happy to offer advice. I think that's always been the way, and I think 2020 is certainly no different. You know, people are more than happy to offer you their two cents, their opinions. And I'm sure if there's an area you're particularly dying to get into, excuse the pun, if there's an area that you really want to get into, just go and find out who the person is, and have a chat to them and ask them what their advice specifically would be. You know, again, if you want to fly an aeroplane, I'm not going to be the person to ask. You know, but you know, if you want to go and build websites, you know, again, if you want to work in engineering, Michael's probably going to be better to give you that advice. You know, if you want to work in product or .NET, then Sammy's probably going to be a great person to ask. And again, we're on places like LinkedIn. So look, feel free to reach out to us on those channels as well. Just don't send blank LinkedIn requests.
Yeah, that's a good question, and very relevant, because Eva, I actually know Eva, and she did an internship with us prior to COVID sort of coming along. So it's a good question, Eva. I'll thank you for that one later. I think, yeah, Sammy, that's a great point. I mean, Eva's in HR, so she has done internships, so she's very employable. But like a side project, I always say to people, like, you know, do something. Like, there is volunteering in organizations that are trying to help with COVID, so you can put your hand up to help with them. There's transferable skills, organizing things, time management. Like, it's all going to it's all going to look relevant. And the other thing is you're helping out with the community. So, you know, just with Eva in mind, like, you know, there are services, you know, HR services, online, there's loads of advice lines I'm seeing. I don't know whether you could approach organizations like that to help out. Like Kieran said, you know, use this time, you know, to invest in yourself. And what Paul said earlier, you know, there's courses, there's things you can do to upskill yourself. But yeah, reach out to HR, like people in your industry, professionals, and just be honest and ask leaders for their advice. And that's going to dovetail into potentially, you know, a potential job in the future or someone that you can add to your network. So, you know, most professionals, leaders are going to be happy to, if you personalize it and genuine, you're going to get a response. And, you know, in 6 to 8 months when things return, you know, they might be the person looking for a new job. So that'd be my advice.
Even HR, I mean, that's a great example. I mean, there's a lot of smaller companies that don't have any HR at all.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if you got in contact with someone and they say they don't have any HR and you say, look, well, I've been doing that. Would you like me to do some free policy for you? Do you have a COVID back to work strategy? And I can guarantee nobody does right now. Everyone's waiting for someone to get one that they can steal, borrow and write something a little bit different and put their own little rubber stamp on it. But I'm sure if you wouldn't have offered something somewhere to someone that you'll go and do this as a free intern project, they'll say yes. If you're good, they'll keep you and you can forge a job in there. That would be my advice for sure.
Yeah, to Kieran's point as well, I 100% agree. And I think we're seeing a lot of hybrid roles these days where you might be doing a bit of HR, but you might be doing a bit of administration. And, you know, if you're developing good skills that would build up, you know, your resume, even if it's, you know, for a short time, you know, as an internship, whether it's a smaller company or a bigger company, why not, you know, apply to other recruitment firms or apply for internships in areas where you think, you know, obviously, first of all, must be of interest to you, but in an area where you can see yourself learning something new. Because I don't think, personally anyway, I feel that, you know, there's no experience is bad experience so long as you learn something from it. And it's better to have some skills in a company than not working at all, I suppose, at the end of the day. So that is my opinion anyway. Wonderful. So there are a lot more questions as well.
I'm trying to answer them.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Sammy, go for it.
No, I'm trying to type into them because there's so many and I'm trying to, yeah.
Good work. Multitasking, I like it, Sammy.
Yeah, but feel free to pick one, Paul, and we can talk about it. And I'll just try to answer them in the chats.
Sure. I'm just gonna scroll through. There's a lot of questions in here. All right. Currently, I mean, this is from an anonymous attendee. Currently, you are in a job and we're hoping to do a transition into another area or industry. But now it looks like they will be looking to hire more experienced people instead of taking a risk on someone. So what should we do to be competitive, or should we wait until it's a better environment?
Look, I mean, with changing industries, there are industries that are literally booming. Yeah, like right now, e-commerce platforms, logistics, delivery, streaming services. Obviously, it's a bit of a tech focus, but if you know, look, I haven't studied what they're advertising. Are they looking for people? I don't know, Kieran, have you seen a lot of these sort of booming? Are they advertising for people? Are they looking?
I think certain industries, I mean, the tech skills are very cross-transferable. You know, I won't get someone I want someone who's been a developer from a streaming services. You know, you'll go, I want a .NET person. I don't really care what they've been doing previously, as long as they've been writing good code and stuff like that. And same as marketing. So look, I mean, if a company's employing someone, you know, they're obviously in a good industry. You know, a lot of it for me will be, if there's an opportunity to go and you want to do it, like go and do a job that you want to do fundamentally. You know, if it's going to make you happy, go and do it. You know, if the opportunity's been there and you've been offered it, go and change. I mean, the area in the industry is normally secondary. I think if you're happy doing something, that's primary, right? Everything is at risk and rewards. I mean, look, you sort of mentioned something earlier, Michael. You know, what happens if you resign from your current job, you go to the new job and they change their mind? You know, that's probably where I see more of the risk right now. You know, people changing jobs, and that I've certainly seen that happen. But look, if you, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this question. You know, if it's a job that you like the sound of, it's a different industry, yeah, go for it. Why not?
suppose it's all about marketing yourself with your transferable skills across, and look, we've all got them. As Kieran said, industries are closer than you think. Customer service, sales skills, project management. When you're marketing yourself, if you want to change industries, you really need to focus on those skills. Think about the industry you're going to go into, use their language, and really focus on, and often they are soft skills that you can transfer. What about you, Sammy? How would you respond to that?
It depends again, what industry you're in, but I do believe that you can talk your way into a job. So if you got that far and they kind of, they got scared and went away, okay, fair, they're allowed to have that. That's their prerogative. But that means that you had a chance. So I would still follow up with them. I would sell myself harder. Okay, right, I don't have this, but I can do this. I have the potential for this. Like, really show that you're hungry for the job. If you got that far and they pulled back, I still think there's potential. But depends, every case is very different. It is, when you're changing industries from X industry to Y industry, it's really about how you package yourself and frame those transferable skills. And I think that's what most people don't have skills in, is knowing how to sell themselves, which is what recruiters know how to do very well, because we sell you. So learning how to repackage yourself and frame something that you think is fairly mundane to actually quite spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Paul, I was just going to say, if you're moving jobs within an industry, we've seen a little bit at the moment. I suppose you've got to do a little bit of homework on your target companies, because on the face of it, and this goes back to an earlier question, like, how are they handling COVID? What's the future for their business? Like in construction, if you're a construction company building apartments or residential housing, look, the future's, immediate future's not looking great. So if the company's more exposed to civil infrastructure that the government is likely to pump money into, that's, if you do your homework and they're more exposed to that, get on board. Like, it could be a great time to move to that. So I don't know, I just say, if you're going to move, just go deep on homework, and with COVID in mind and how they're handling that as well. Use your network, people that work there, people that know that company. And Paul?
Yeah, no, totally agree with what you have said, Michael and Sammy as well. I think it's just finding the right industries, that are probably coming up stronger or sort of picking up again. And like what Sammy said, don't sell yourself short just because you're less experienced. I think a lot of companies, and I maybe the rest of you would agree with me, but a lot of companies hire based on attitude. At the end of the day, you might be the most brilliant, technically skilled person out there, but if you're not to have the right attitude or the right culture for the business, they probably go for someone else who less experienced than you, but a lot hungrier, a lot more motivated, a lot more switched on, is gonna really want to do the best for the company and for the team. I think businesses rather invest in someone less skilled with the right attitude than someone who's highly skilled but maybe a bit arrogant. And I think most companies would do that anyway.
Yeah. When Sammy said about the package as well, like getting your references, people that are going to support you, like that's a big thing. Like if your CEO of a previous company backs you, to transfer industries, put that front and center, that people are going to believe you could cross industries and change careers. They've seen your work in one, so sometimes that that trust and testimonials or whatever might be the catalyst that helps.
Wonderful. Let me find another, because so many questions I'm just trying to go through. So Sean Cooper has got a question. He asked, do you have visibility of the talent that has moved into unconventional career paths, entrepreneurial, criminal, etc.?
Do we have what?
Do you have visibility of...
Visibility.
Yeah.
It's a bit early for that, to see that visibility. I think we'll see that in the next 12 months or so. I don't personally have that type of visibility yet. Do you, Kieran or Michael?
That's a question.
I like the question. It's got criminal in there as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
You have visibility the talent that has moved into unconventional career paths. Criminal. Yeah.
Entrepreneur and criminal. That's very different career paths, by the way. But
A Breaking Bad kind of situation.
Great question, Storm Cooper. I like the way your head's at. As Sammy said, look, I don't think any of that information will be out there. But look, I certainly think when situations like this happen, this is when a lot of people do, or some are forced into going down entrepreneurial roads. So they don't have any other, I suppose, paid facilities. They don't have any paid jobs, paid roles. So, but with sadness, there's always happiness at the end of it and stuff like that, right? But I don't think there's anything right now. But look, certainly if you've got the ability, if you're working from home, if you're living at home, and you don't have financial burdens and stresses and things like that, now's certainly a great time to try and build something online if you've got the ability to. But look, to answer your question, no, I certainly don't. And look, maybe ask the police about crime rates. They might be increasing. Yeah, looting in the UK, I'm not sure about that one. That's my favourite question.
a very interesting question, isn't it?
I mean, you've heard of businesses pivoting and throwing up ideas. I mean, all the stuff with the sanitizer. I mean, gin companies were making hand sanitizer, and
yep.
I mean, there's entrepreneurial spirit right there. So, but yeah, look, that's just what you hear in the press and see. But yeah, like Kieran said, maybe it is a great time for a new idea or something you've got brewing. So, game on.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that goes into, there's a question there by Navraj Singh, like, will this period lead to more creativity as people are exploring wider options while getting ample time at home for hobbies and doing things they like? Look, 100%. And I think that what Sammy was saying, do some of your own things. This is a time for creative people to absolutely thrive. There's always something born from a crisis, and Michael just alluded to him where companies have pivoted. That there's nothing stopping anyone from doing anything right now. The 2020 is the era where if you've got the ability to think it, you can do it. There's probably not too many things apart from teleportation, I think, that are probably unachievable. The world's getting smaller, and look, again, there's probably a group of people, there's 30 odd people asking questions. I'm sure there's 30 smarter people who haven't asked questions. Maybe not smart, that's rude. Sorry, so 30 have asked questions. But there's a lot of smart people out there. Like, getting people together is probably a great thing now. Obviously universities are putting smart people in rooms together. So look, maybe there needs to be some inventors getting together, trying to come up with ideas, the creative people, the doers. I do generally believe that something great will come from this. There generally is. But yeah, creativity it's superb when you hear and see some of the ideas that people come up with, right? Yeah.
I mean, Navraj mentioned hobbies there, and I think people are craving for, to be connected. And e-learning platforms, basket weaving, whatever you're into. If you launched a course or something globally, if you were that passionate about it and you had some structure about it, you're going to get people interested. Yeah, people thrive and are attracted to passionate people. So, I look forward to seeing what courses, what's going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah. What's the old saying? Do something you love, and you never have to work a day again in your life. So I think that could be very appropriate in today's world.
Yeah. No, I think both those questions kind of work hand in hand together. And hi Sean. Unfortunately, I don't have the crystal ball on what's going to happen in the economy. If anyone tells you they do, I'll be a bit concerned as well. But one of my neighbors actually started a business, in the middle of March. It was a food and beverage business. So look, it's how you see it, isn't it? Is it half glass empty or half glass full? So if you've got a passion for cooking, baking, and you're amazing at it, you want to, you lost your job, you want to do it, why not? If you're passionate about it, if that's what you want to do. And on the Navraj question as well, like I read an article a while ago, and very interestingly enough, like after the global financial crisis back in 2007 to 2009, some of the world's biggest startups, companies today, Airbnb, Uber, Instagram, WhatsApp, these companies were formed out of the GFC, by the way. So they were in garages, coming up with ideas, innovation, having chats, coming together. Instead of a point when people are losing all their jobs and whatnot, they were actually coming together to see how can we make things better, right? So again, it depends on what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what your skills are, and if you can do something good with it, why not?
Yeah, well, look, like Eva's question earlier and what Sammy said about side projects, yeah, like I'd rather see someone's CV that they're out of work, they lost their job for 3 months, document what they tried to do with a website or a course or something, that some initiative. I mean, that just speaks volumes, and it speaks volumes to clients as well. Certainly the ones we deal with in the SME space, they're all entrepreneurs anyway, the owners of these construction engineering business. If they see someone that's tried to do something, that's done something, I mean, they're the people you want, yeah? Like if it returns to an employee situation. So yeah, get out there.
Wonderful. Well, we're running out of time. So one last question that has sort of been brought out here is, what's your top 3 tips to stay employable and relevant at your workplace during these uncertain times?
Sammy, you're on.
Me? Okay, so this is the top 3 tips.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, based on this, there seems to be a theme in the questions. The themes looks like how do I stand out and be competitive is what I'm seeing in these questions. There's a fair bit about international students here, and then courses is what I see. So I'm going to try to frame my tips around that. How to stand out. I think it is incredibly competitive now, so you need to recognize that. And I'd say you need to spend a solid amount of time on your resume. Your resume can be a life-changing document. And so if you've only spent one night on it, you're not giving it the respect that it's due. This thing you should work on over months and continually iterate on it. So if you're wanting to stand out for a job and that there's hundreds of applications for, really make a specific resume and a specific cover letter to that job. Research the brand colors, put the logo on there, address who you think is the HR manager in it. That will really stand out because people do look at them. And if you have that tiny bit of humanity there where it's like, oh, I can tell that somebody put effort in, that's worth a phone call. So I think try significantly harder on your resume and cover letter. The next piece also for standing out, I would say, is in these competitive times, leverage your network. Get onto LinkedIn, find out if your first or second contacts are at the company that you're looking at joining. Maybe tap them on the shoulder, ask them for a virtual coffee, and have like an informational interview and ask, how did you get in there? What did it take? Who do you know? So really try to network your way into that job. It's a lot of who you know during these strategically challenging times. What was the other piece? And I would say, depending on your area, but working on your personal brand is quite a large thing. So your LinkedIn profile, a recruiter will definitely go look at that and see what that looks like for you. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile and your resume is aligned. For those international students who are looking at the moment and you're a little bit worried, yes, it is a challenging time, but if you approach your job search with strategy and purpose, you'll find more results. So instead of applying for 100 jobs, maybe just apply for 10 that you really go quite hard in on and work quite purposely toward. I think learn the steps of an email and learn how to follow up. So nobody follows up when they apply for a job. Nobody. So if you follow up, you will be the standout. And there's a few hundred people on this call, so only you guys know this top tip. So if you follow up, whether it be an email, phone call, whatever that job ad is, find them on LinkedIn, do a little, hey, how are we going? That's a really neat tip. As well as, I just also want to be very conscious of, because it is highly competitive now, my last tip is to always remain professional. So no emotional pleas or anything like that. I really need this X, Y, and Z. We want to remain professional with all of these interactions and build rapport and genuine relationships before we start asking for things. Those will be my tips.
Awesome. Love it. Good work, Sammy. I agree with what Sammy said.
Is that the top 5 tips? So the top
A lot
5
of
tips?
candidates.
Yeah, no, perfect. No, 100% agree with Sammy. I mean, look, I'd probably, if I was adding ones, look, run your own race. Firstly, like don't compare yourself with other people and ignore the noise because it's so noisy right now. So that'd be my first tip: to just do it as you can. My second one would be definitely, Sammy mentioned, like try something new. To do a passion project. You just never know. And someone mentioned things about entrepreneurship earlier. You just never know. It could seed into something. There was a phrase a while ago, like saying, what do you want to be remembered of during COVID? And you certainly don't want to be the person who's only remembered for rearranging your sock drawer. Do you know what I mean? So if you can do something differently, and I think a pet project, passion project, helping an FP, whatever it might be, I think that'd be a great thing. And my third and final point would be look to build relationships. If you can work backwards and you know where you want to be, and if that's, I want to be engineering, who's the best engineering manager if you want to work as a marketer, who's a CMO that chief marketing officer that and build a relationship, reach out to them and say, how did you get to where you got to today? What do I need to do? And get somebody to actually help you plan what you want to do. So I always find it easier to start at the end and work backwards. It's a bit like if I'm doing a puzzle, I start at the very end and work my way to the front. I never go that way. I don't know why. It's just the way my brain works. And I think when you're trying to land the job, if you know what you want to do, again, build the relationships to help you get there.
Yeah, good point. I'll answer my top 3 tips. Like if you're in a job and you're trying to maintain that, obviously it's, if people are getting made redundant around you, you're feeling pressure. I'd say, number one, that ability to adapt. It's not a time to be with your head in the sand. You've got to get out there. If there's new tech on board, like take ownership and master it, and educate your other colleagues on how to use it. I mean, that from an like a management point of view, that's they see that, and your stickability in that job is just, you're getting stickier all the time. And second and third tips is just like working on collaboration and communication is just, you can never, certainly in these times, collaboration in, learning from mistakes and building some accountability into how your teams are working, like working remotely. If you're not in the office already, like put your hand up, get involved. And, from a communication point of view, I think everyone can get better at listening, and building rapport with team members. Maybe you don't deal with these people every day, but and employers will take note of that. And look, if you maintain a job through a tough time when 25% of the work's cut, you're gonna thank for putting some time into those skills.
Wonderful. My top 3 tips, first of all, would be stay resilient. On behalf of all the international students who are on this webinar, I was an international student myself, so I know exactly how you feel. I didn't have a PR nor a citizenship. I applied for a lot of jobs, trust me, 8 years ago when I was out on the job market. You just have to keep going and, realign your approach. And it's okay to, not hear back, but learn from your past applications and put those lessons together and keep going. So fun fact anyway, so I was actually rejected by the company I worked for, Page Group. So I applied for the role. I never heard back. They didn't want me, but another recruiter actually placed me at the business 6 months later. So, that is the true story for myself anyway. And, if you have your eyes on something and you go for it and, just keep trying, that's all you can do. The second thing I would say is, networking on the point that Sammy and a lot of us have sort of mentioned. It doesn't matter if you're a graduate, you're experienced, engineer or experienced finance professional. Find who are the leaders and people you look up to in your field, and in accounting, in IT, in engineering. Find those people, connect with them on LinkedIn, reach out to them. Most leaders anyway, I think I believe in humanity. I think would be nice.
Has Paul gone again?
So it's a good free fun though.
But he might come back.
Hope so. Are you answering some of those questions that have been popping up online?
I'm trying.
You're making me look bad now because I'm seeing there's been some ask.
Paul, you froze there, Paul. You're back.
Yeah, we lost you for a while, Paul.
Sorry. Yeah. what I was saying is that even if you're not an extrovert, you know, now more than ever during COVID-19, you have to step out of your shell and get a few more people on LinkedIn, you know, speak to the people you know in the companies that you want to work for, and, you know, just keep trying, I suppose, in a professional manner, I suppose. That's the key message. And the last thing is, you know, you might not land the third point I was going to say is you might not land your dream job. So I'd say focus on maybe 5-10 companies you would like to work for. So I didn't get my first job in recruitment. You know, I worked in fundraising. You know, I was helping charities to raise awareness. Did that for about 9 months, 12 months. I worked in real estate before I ended up in recruitment. So you might not, you know, everyone's path and journey is a bit different. But if you have like a set, you know, number of companies, you know, that you like to work for, keep them on your radar and keep applying for those roles, and, you know, realign your approach and, you know, stay positive, I suppose. The good news is that you're not alone. We're all in this sort of situation together. So businesses, leaders are learning every day as well. So, you know, I think that's the most important thing, and I hope that's a key takeaway for everyone. Wonderful. So I might hand it back to Catherine, who might want to wrap up for us.
Thanks for that, Paul, and all of our panelists. That does bring us to the end of our webinar. Thank you to everyone who logged on and submitted your questions. If your question didn't get answered, please feel free to contact one of our panelists on LinkedIn. We will be forwarding all of your questions, so look out for the answers to those. Again, we do have a survey that will be popping up at the end of this webinar. Please fill that out so you can have your say on future events. And on behalf of the board, I'd really just like to give a big thank you to Michael, Sammy, Kieran, and Paul. You've really delivered some great insights for everyone that might be impacted by COVID-19, and I'm sure everyone did find it very helpful. I know I certainly did. In terms of our upcoming events, July, please look out for our next installment of the Get Finance Fit series. That's how to be tax smart. And make sure you look out for the details of our next employability event, which will be released soon, hopefully. And just on a final note, yesterday did mark the beginning of Reconciliation Week. The University of Queensland acknowledges the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which UQ operates. We pay our respects to the ancestors and descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country, and we recognise their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. So thank you again, everyone, and we do hope to see you at our next event.
Thank you. And again, just following up very quickly, if there was any questions that weren't answered, look, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, Kieran O'Donnell, send me the message, send me the question. I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. But yeah, good luck to everyone in your search for future work.
Here. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And I'm sure everyone on the panel. But thanks again, Catherine, and everyone at UQ for organizing this. It was a great discussion.
Right,
Love seeing you all again, guys.
Good night. Thanks.
Signing off. Cheers. Take care.
Bye.